Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from and who do it well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm entitled this one, The Edomite Starting to Feel the Curses. And who is the Edomite Esau, Edom in the scripture speaking about would be no other today than the self-proclaimed white man. Because the self-proclaimed white man has hid under all these different identities, under the Europeans, the Spaniards, the French, the British, the American, the Anglo-Saxon, so on and so forth, because Esau Edom is a vagabond. He doesn't have his own culture, his own identity. So what he has done throughout his history is gone out throughout the earth, taking over all these different countries, taking over their resources, and also taking over their identities. Because if this devil has stolen the resources off the planet Earth, why would he stop at just the resources and not the identities, not take on the identities of other nations? He did it to the Greeks. He took over the Grecian Empire, the Greeks, which ultimately the original Greeks were the Japhites. But he took over that empire and he took their identity and called himself the Greeks. And after that, he took over the Roman Empire and called themselves the Romans. And now, he took over the land of Israel, and now he's calling himself the Jews. The proclaiming to be the true Israelites of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, but they don't fit. They don't fit the curses. They don't fit prophecy. They don't fit none of the biblical prophecy that's in the scriptures. But one thing that they do fit in prophecy is them being the Edomites, having complete rulership of the entire planet Earth, being the top nation on the planet Earth, because ultimately they've been given the earth, they've been given a temporary blessing by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And now that blessing, the time of that blessing is starting to run out. Now these Edomites, these self-proclaimed white people, are being exposed to who they really are, which is the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, which is the twin brother of Jacob, the Edomites, the basis of all men. And now the world's starting to see their bullshit, that ultimately they're not who they truly say they are. They're not the smartest people on the planet Earth with the highest IQ. They're not the true Israelites. They're not the Southern Kingdom, the Jews over there in the Holy Land. So now everybody's starting to see their bullshit, and now that they feel that target on their back, now they're playing victim. They're projecting all their insecurities among all these different nations. Just a couple days ago, you had the whole halftime show, people talking shit, and I'm gonna tune into the Edomite halftime show, because these Edomites, they feel targeted. They feel that target on their back, and ultimately they know that they're being exposed of being the problem of the planet Earth, being that cancer. And ultimately that's all prophecy, is biblical prophecy playing out upon the planet Earth, because Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, he's about to be out of here. He's about to be taken out of his power seat. But first, he's going to be exposed in these last days to who he really is, and all the wickedness that he's done throughout the four corners of the earth. With the whole Epstein files being released a couple days ago, it's just going to ramp up more and more. More light is going to be shed on this devil, to the point where he's just going to have to make his move and come down with that great wrath and shut the grid down, shut the internet down, and just come down with that sword, because ultimately he was blessed with the swords of Now he's done sending all these psyops on these people, and he's just gonna, get down and dirty, like he's always done. He's gonna stop hiding the horns and hiding under the image of a righteous person and white, because that word white really, it means pure, it means clean. But Esau, he's the complete opposite of being white, being pure, being clean, because really he's the true black. Really they're the true black people, is these Edomites. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 7. And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, thy power, will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee and persecuted thee. And that's what all these different heathen nations, starting with Esau, Edom, this is what they're starting to feel. They're starting to feel the curses being put upon them. You have all these Edomites crying out on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, crying about, oh man, we starting to get laid off. This inflation's kicking my ass. Here I'm working a 9 to 5 and can't make ends meet. And who are they calling out to join hand in hand with him? Jake. They're calling upon Jake. Oh hell, join hand in hand with us, help us out. We're starting to catch hell, but good. Jake been catching hell. They've been living paycheck to paycheck and scraping to get by. Being called all these different names and bywords. Black, Hispanic, Native American. But now that Esau's starting to feel the same curses that Jake has been dealing with all these years, now Esau's mad. Now he's pissed off. He's starting to feel, what it feels to be at the bottom of the barrel. Because now you have a lot of Jakes, a lot of Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that are doing better than Esau, Edom, is in his own kingdom. So ultimately, Esau, Edom, he's a two-time loser. Because if this is as good as it gets for him, he's not going to win in the kingdom. The only ones that are really winning right now are these top elite banking families, these Rothschilds and these Rockefellers, the 1%. But they're not sharing that blessing with the 99% Edomite. And ultimately, that's why they're mad. They're mad because the Amalekite, the small hat, the tiny hat, took up all that blessing for themselves. So now these Edomites are mad, and you can't blame it on Jake. You can't blame it on the Israelite that these Amalekites took up that blessing for themselves. So ultimately all these heathen nations, but starting with the Edomite, they're starting to feel these curses. They're starting to feel what it is to catch hell and be like on a level of Jake, on a so-called Negroes, Latino, and Native American. Because ultimately Jake, we've been under the curses all these years, but now they're slowly being transferred over to these other nations, starting with Esau, Edom. Their women is starting to stop dealing with the Edomite man, and they're starting to deal with the Israelite man. They're starting to deal with the so-called black man, the so-called Latino man, the so-called Native American man. And that's how you know an empire is collapsing, by who their woman is dealing with. Just like the Israelite woman, the so-called black woman Eve was dealing with Esau back then. When Jake got taken out the house, they started to offer Section 8 and welfare. Now Esau, Edom, starting to feel that as well. Now you got Esau on welfare and food stamps. This is Romans chapter 9 and verse 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. And there you go. Who is Jacob? Israel. The descendants of Jacob, Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the descendants of the 12 tribes, the 12 sons of Jacob, which would be prophesied to receive that eternal blessing. The blessing of having complete rulership of the entire planet Earth for eternity, starting with Yahweh Shine, 144,000. And then you have Esau, which was given that second blessing, that second place blessing, that temporary blessing, that would allow him to have complete rulership of the entire planet Earth as well. But immortality wasn't promised to Esau. Eternal rulership wasn't promised to Esau. That was ultimately only promised to the nation of Israel. And why? And this is why this devil was mad, because his time of ruling is just about up, and they're starting to feel it. They're starting to feel that their time is dwindling down, and they're about to get the hell up out of here. They're about to be brought back down to that base position that they should be in, because these devils shouldn't be in rulership position. It's clear and evident that they don't know how to run the planet Earth, and that's why everything's so jacked up. But Yahweh Bashim Shai is about to show how much he really hates this devil, how much he really hates Esau, and how much he loves Jacob. And ultimately, the ones who are going to come back to Yahweh Bashim Shai are going to be the remnant, the elect, the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude of believers that helps the friends of the prophets. This is Job chapter 14 and verse 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So ultimately, Yahweh Bashim Shai, he's drawn that line in the sand where it's like, okay, Esau, you had your time to rule upon the planet Earth, but you're just about at that line. You know, it's time. It's time for you to make your move so you could be brought down from a rulership position, because ultimately that's what Yahweh Bashim Shai is about to put upon his devil spirit, upon his devil's mind, is to make that move so he could get up out of here, because that's what Esau is scared of. He knows once he makes that move, come down upon his prophets, upon his chosen, upon his remnant, that's when Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to raise that standard. And that's what this devil's scared of. He's scared of the spiritual power that's going to come to the elect, that's going to be shown on a world scale. And then the world's going to know, oh, damn, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans were the true chosen people of Yahweh Bashim Shai. And this devil was not. He was lying. He was lying that he was the true chosen people of the Most High, and painting themselves in the images, in the iconoclasm, and during the Renaissance period. So Yahweh Bashim Shai he's about to get this devil out of here, and that's why they're starting to complain. They're starting to cry and sigh, because here Jake's been catching hell for all this time, but you don't see Jake complaining. You only see this Edomite complaining because he can't handle no adversity. But Yahweh Bashim Shai is just getting started on this devil. This is Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. And that's what has happened to the so-called white man. He has been made bare. He has been exposed. He's being called out. First and foremost, it all started with our elder Abba Bibbins during the late 60s, and then down to our elders of our apostles, and then the elders, bishops, apostles on down. Now Esau Edom, he's being exposed of who he really is. He's being called out. And now the whole world is starting to see, man, this devil, the whole steam file is being released. He's being made bare to what he really does behind closed doors. The whole child, deletion, child 187, the drinking of the red bodily fluids, the Google, Chrome, graping, little, I don't even want to say it, but you get the point what this devil is doing behind closed doors. The whole Baal and Moloch sacrifice. Just like during the time of when Jake was going the hell off, that's the same things happening today, because ultimately this devil, Esau Edom, he's doing the same thing that those Canaanites were doing back then, because this devil don't have no culture. All he does is steal. He steals and grapes, murders, takes people's resources. Now the world's starting to see what this devil has really gone out throughout the four corners of the earth and done. Whenever he claims that a nation has weapons of mass destruction and we're gonna save their people from the T word, terrorist, really is to take their resources. And now the world's starting to see the problem of the earth is Esau, Edom. It's the so-called white man. It's America. So that's why the world's starting to hate this devil, because you see Jake, doing wickedness, but they don't compare to the wickedness of this devil. Jake ain't bombing people over there in Gaza. Jake ain't putting chemicals and GMOs in your food. Jake ain't spraying chemtrails and dropping crates of guns in the hood. No, that's Esau Edom. That's a self-proclaimed white man doing that wickedness. So now that he's starting to be called out upon it, now he's starting to play victim. He's trying to pull out another Diddy case and another R. Kelly case, to try to shine that light on Jake when it's really this devil that's been behind all this wickedness all this time. But that's why Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is about to bring this devil down. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And who is this talking about? This is talking about no other than the self-proclaimed white man, Esau Edom. Who's the one that loves high-rise buildings? And I gotta build up another 80-story building, and they love to live on top of the penthouse, the very top floor. Is Esau Edom, because that's his natural state. A Caucasian, cave dweller, and that's how they was back in the time of the ancient. When Jake, was back in the land of Israel, Esau had his own portion, over there in the land of Petra. And how did Esau live? He lived in the mountains. And that's how this devil is. He prides himself in, being in his high position, being in this position of power. But Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is about to bring him down. Verse 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle. And who's the favorite mascot of the Edomite? The eagle. It says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. And that's when Esau Edom's kingdom started collapsing. During the time of the whole space race, putting the satellites up in the heavens, proclaiming to go to the moon, and I made it to the moon first. The whole Apollo in the 1969. That's when our elder high priest Abba Bibbins came on the scene. He started going into the Old Testament and the New Testament, and ever since, this devil system has fallen and collapsed. The dollar's been collapsing ever since. How much more now in 2026? Verse 5, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? And this devil, he don't leave nothing for nobody. He's a hoarder. He's covetous. He can never have enough. Verse 6, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? And now the world's starting to see that this devil, all he does is just take resources. He doesn't give nothing back. Whenever he goes into a country and claims to make a contract with that country and their leadership, it's not to benefit them. It's only to benefit Esau. He's a parasite. All he does is just take, and he doesn't give nothing back. This is Lamentations chapter 4 and verse 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. So shit, live it up while you still have the time to live it up, which is very short time, but you still see a lot of Edomites winning. Over there in the nicer part of towns, gated communities. They driving the exotic cars. They got the mansions. The golf courses. But that's as good as it gets for Esau, because ultimately, what Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, is never going to get is immortality. He's never going to have eternal rulership of the entire planet Earth. And that's why now that he's starting to feel these curses put up on him, he's crying out, because he's been so used to chilling, kicking his feet back up, especially during the time of after World War II, during the 50s, when Esau Edom was at its pinnacle. He had the whole white picket fence, the brand new car, the brand new house, the wife, the kid, the dog. He's sending his kids out to college for a couple $1,000s. Those days are gone, and that's why these Edomites are crying out, on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, because they want those glory days back. They want to make America great again, and that's why they're replacing their hope in Trump. But now that he stabbed them in the back, and he's shown that he's really with these world leaders, these small hats, now they're starting to feel like, damn, what do we do? That this was our last hope. Verse 22, the punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. In the time of Jake, Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans catching hell, being under the curses, it's about to be up. And who's the next one is about to catch pure holy hell, be put in slavery, in captivity for 1,000 years, and then being done away with, is Esau Edom. That's what this devil has in store for him. And that's why he's crying now. That's why these elites are trying so hard to offset prophecy and gain immortality on the left-hand side, but it's not going to work. Yahweh Shemel Shai is exposing this devil. He's being called out, and it don't feel good. It don't feel good to be called a devil, being called to who you really are, and all the wickedness that you've done throughout the four corners of earth. But the cat is out the bag. It's too late. Esau Edom can't no longer hide under white, under all these different titles that he's put upon himself. Now the world's starting to see, man, those tiny hats, those small cats, those 48ers, they're the problem of the earth. But also the self-proclaimed white man, Esau Edom. But that's pretty much the point. I pray that this was edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from and who do rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say, Shalom.